What do we have here? Hey everyone, this is a unique little guy. This is from FMS. It appears to be a Skyline of some sort, a little squished, with a ginormous camera on the roof. So I'm quite curious what this is going to be like. They did send me all three of these, so we're going to do some racing. And yeah, let's take a look-see. We're not looking at a particularly scaled vehicle, so I don't think that is the point. Box is surprisingly large. I suspect that the majority of the box is remote. And I was not expecting this. Install a black sponge ring here. Don't mind if I do. There. Quite an interesting... What? No way. So these are the components for the FPV. So we have two antennas, USB, other viewing goodies in there. And here is the car. The car with the charging cable. Okay, so obviously the camera does come off. The car is very adorable. Front suspension, nothing at the rear. How does this work? Okay, this probably comes off. So that comes off. Wow, this is well thought out. What is this going to be like? Does this mean a bunch of us can... Wait a minute. That means we can set up a track and we can race? What? That's going to be cool. All right, so here is the info on this. I think this will be a bit more of an in-depth review on how to set this thing up. I think I'm going to have to figure out how it works and then I'll report back to you. I should have done this on camera. So I went to go pull this little tab out and I saw this little clip down here, so I pulled that instead, and then this was sticking out, and it's just 3 batteries, and I suspect that these are fly deer. I mean, obviously fly deer. It's fantastic. So they'll slide in there. You flip this down, slide that closed, power. This is a little weird. No, actually it feels pretty good. Never mind. That's not bad. Huh. What a weird little remote. Look at these lights though. Huh. Just out of curiosity, because I can't be bothered to wait, I'm going to take this camera off, turn the car on by using this button. Oh my god, there's little lights underneath. Little headlights, little grill lights. Look at all the pots for the adjustment. I love that. Okay, can we drive you? Feels good. There's a button here for headlamp. Okay, headlamps on, off. Chassis lights, off. Oh, never mind. This is probably helpful when you're driving to see other cars. All right, I've got to set this up. With the car on, you turn this on by holding this button here, and immediately it started working. Well, that's what I look like right now. And don't worry, I'm wearing pants. Or am I? Cool. Now, there is an SD card right there, so we can put a card in there and press the little record button to watch what is going on. Pressing the menu button again does give you a number of options. One thing I don't know if they have is an ability to set the depth. To me, it's a little bit close to my eyes. This is a very, very simple set of goggles here. Notice the back of the camera. There is a label for A through D. In the top left corner, it says channel A. Okay, so you can alter that by having up to 4 cars by clicking that button right there. If your finger is small enough, the corner of the sunroof works pretty well for that. Okay, so now we're at frequency B. We can actually click the channel button here. And there is channel B. Now there is also a band button right there as well, which to me just goes up the channels and down the channels if you click band and channel. There is information on what the band and channel can do. I apologize, I cannot make heads or tails of it. You can evidently expand the number of available channels. I unfortunately cannot figure that part of that out. However, the fact of the matter is this seems to only run on 4 different channels, so I don't know what the benefit of that is, unless these are going to be used for additional purposes. To record something, which we do later, you just press the little record button after putting the SD card slot in here. And just a little side note, the placement of all of these slots are horrible. The SD slot, you need to actually use a set of pliers to pull it out because my fingers can't just grab it. The USB port is also kind of finicky to get in there. I don't know why they did that. To me, all of these slots could have been in the front, perhaps. So a little side note, they're a little bit annoying there. We talked about headlamp and chassis. There's a button there called FPV box. That, if we press this button, watch there, and watch that light. So it kills the camera. So it's basically a manual button to shut off the camera. I don't know what the purpose of that would be, because if you didn't want the camera on, you would just take it off. But nevertheless, if for some reason you put the camera on your car and the light's not on, press this button. There you go, and it comes back. Now there's the matching button. Unfortunately, that button, I've looked, can't figure anything out. Okay, we have this button down here that says brake. Watch this. Accelerate, reverse. Okay, press brake, accelerate, stop, reverse. Accelerate, stop, reverse. Hard to tell, but these lights actually are turning white. You can see that there, if we reverse. P1, P2. I've read the manual, can't figure that out at all. A moment ago, I mentioned that this can take an 18650 battery. So I've got a few here. This is a standard 18650 that you would typically find in a device where these are readily removable for recharging. You can see that the plus side, this part protrudes. You can also get an 18650 that's designed to be soldered in place, and the top does not protrude. I've seen a variety of 18650s, all different kind of weird sizes. This one, for example, it's harder to tell. This one's actually shorter than this one here, and then the positive side protrudes a little bit, not as much as that one, but is not sub-flush like this one here. So a little bit weird. The thing is, not all of them fit. This one here, for example, when you try and install that, I cannot get this to close. This one here is not going to work because you're not going to get continuity as these plastic tabs protrude further than the positive tab there. So that one's not going to work. Finally, this one here, which is kind of in between those two, does actually work. So I don't know what the deal is with 18650s. And just so you know that there actually are smaller ones, this is an 18500, I think. Clearly that one's not going to work. So when purchasing one, find one that is 65.8 millimeters tall from positive to negative or slightly below. And again, you need to ensure that the positive terminal protrudes and is not flush. Hope that helps. At this point here, we're going to charge the car and take it for a spin. Now, just a heads up, the driving portion has already been done, and I'm going to apologize ahead of time. But if anybody's heard of the expression herding cats, well, that's precisely what this was like. Between nobody holding the camera in the landscape mode, trying to organize the children, then trying to organize the grandparents. Oh man, let's just say everybody had a great time. And then later on in the driving video, we made a little track here at the house to try and drive it a bit better and get some more footage. Mode.
Everybody drive. Dodo, drive.
Okay, I gotta find my unit.
All right, guys, drive. Everybody drive. Try attempt.
Whee, there you go. Go, Nico. Whoa. Go, Nico.
It seems to scramble, Alberto.
Yeah, I don't know why it's doing that.
Daddy,
Yeah.
whoever got this
Okay, I'm stuck in a book.
blue guy. Daddy now, but
Okay, I see a little white guy in front of me.
Oh, there we go. We're better now. I fell over. I fall over. You.
Yeah. Oh,
What do you mean scramble?
I see a little purple car that just by me.
He's just pushing the button that way. Yeah, there you go. But look, he made it work. Well, that's because he figured it out. You just keep it on here. Oh, it's a collision.
Oh no, not again.
Oh my God! No, anyway, you go forward. Can you go backward?
You're still going backwards? Oh my
Yeah,
God.
I am.
Who did that?
No.
No, did it.
I'm going backwards. I'm very good at it.
This is ridiculous.
Hey!
Now Tina wants to go backwards. Forward, mayday, mayday.
Oh no, I flipped over again. Save me, Squeaky, save me. Whoa.
he's genuinely. Look at this. That's not me.
I crashed. Senna. I have to. Daddy, that's hard. My collar. Sorry, Senna. Ah, I crashed. Oh, Ah.
All right. Where do I begin? These cars are ridiculous fun. Just in terms of throwing them at the children, between them playing with them with the visor on, which my daughter loved, or without the camera and without the FPV, like my son loved, it didn't matter. Every time they got their hands on the cars, they'd run them until the batteries were dead. That was just how it happened. They loved these cars. I found that 2 of them work great with the FPVs on. 3 will give the occasional glitch. Now, I also found that depending where I was in the living room, they were better or worse. Both houses that I was at to do the filming was right next to the router, so I'm sure that didn't help. Now, you did see earlier that I had this one there as well. So this is another one of the vehicles that they offer, and it is called the Flush 30. I'd imagine for the BMW E30, but this isn't an E30. I am going to have a video on this, but before I do that, I would just like to show the differences because I think for a moment it'd be nice to see what they're both like. In terms of the FPV setup, identical. Remotes are the same, everything's identical. What is different is, notice how these tires are turned? Under here, this is actually skid steer. So when I initially saw that, and by the way, turn the remote on, then the car. If you turn the car on, then the remote, it doesn't always sync up. I love the look of this. I think that the lighting actually on here is better than it is on this car. You can basically see the LED, and on these, they're kind of off at the side. Same with the taillights. The taillights work better on this than they do on this, but cosmetically, really, it's up to you. What's weird is also you can tell the rear camber. Okay, so it's one of those cars that's got its stance. The difference is if you drive the blue car, we turn the wheels and just drive it around very happily. We'll address the elephant in the room. It will basically do that. However, what was really weird is if you try and drive the car normally, it is totally capable of making normal maneuvers. Yes, we will talk about this later on, but I did want to simply bring this up because there are two variations. But what is important is, do you want one? Now, we are talking about effectively two different toys here. One of them is a micro remote control car, and the other is a FPV remote control car. Typically, when you make one item do multiple things, there are compromises. And in the case of this vehicle, I think that is still true. The compromise is the camera is not that great. You know, the resolution's not wonderful. You know, it's not going to be HD quality. But for what it does as an FPV setup, it's not bad. I think it gets the job done. My daughter likes sitting on the couch, which was a good 15 feet away from when we were driving it, and had no problem whatsoever. As a radio-controlled car, I think it's also quite good. I'm not a fan of the cartoony proportions, nor am I a fan of the overall design of this one. Compared to the Flush 30, I think this has way better design than this one does here, but I understand what they were doing here. You know, obviously the tire needs more clearance for the steering versus the Flush 30, which doesn't because the front tires don't turn. So I get that. That means as a radio-controlled car, it works very well. At no point did I think the steering was poor. I didn't think the acceleration was poor. I didn't think the handling was poor. So it's a good RC car and an acceptable FPV experience. But really, if there was one of these and I had to test it, I would have children fighting over it. On top of that, even if there were two, there's no way I could have gotten the grandparents in there. They are a ton, an absolute ton of fun to play with. I do think that the location they can be played with is minimal. These should not be driven on the floor. So I did have these on the floor in the living room, but prior to that, I'd vacuumed, but then I'd actually mopped that area because I'm always worried that lint and dust and hair and who knows what is going to get stuck in these axles. And I think then it's going to be a pain in the butt to get it out. And something this small, if this tire isn't spinning as it should, it actually can cause the car to pull in one direction. So if you are looking for a toy that you can play with, especially with the family, this is the way to go. If you want a micro RC car, I would hold off on this one here, partly because of the cost. It is not a cheap toy. If you do want many of them, then it's definitely not cheap. But for an overall experience, it is remarkable fun. So stay tuned as I will review these guys next. I've actually got a cool application for this that this won't work in. My friends, thank you all so much for watching, and I hope this video was informative. We will see you next time.